All right, historians, let's get into our fifth unit. This is going to be covering the civil rights movement or the modern civil rights movement. And when I mean modern, we're going to be talking about like 1955-ish, and we're going to get probably up to about 1970-ish or so. But you can make the argument that a lot of this stuff is still happening today. So here we go. So when we get into this one, we're going to be getting into causes and effects like we have been, but I also want you to pay attention to the individuals and the groups that have been really trying to make a push for civil rights to exist, civil rights to happen, to be respected. There's a lot of different ways you can spin this. So either way, just make sure you're listening for them. So again, try to pay attention to the individual and the groups because this is what you're going to be asked to write about at the end of the unit. So why does all this matter is because when you look at the African Americans and the history, they've been treated like second class citizens for a long, long time. Even after their devotions in World War One, World War Two, I could throw the Korean War on this. They've proved time and time again they have true patriotism for our country, but yet they still got kind of crapped on throughout the times. So here's how they fought back, pretty much, which is a big deal. The movement was the source of inspiration for millions of people in the United States. So you're going to notice that African Americans, whites, and people of all genders and races are going to be basically uniting during this time. So here is something we have to establish that's out of this time period, time period. And this is going to be known as the Plessy versus Ferguson Supreme Court case. And this is what sets up 60, 70 years of oppression. So the Supreme Court is going to rule in 1896 that a gentleman by the name of Plessy is going to be not constitutional, I guess, because of where he's sitting on a train. So the story goes he was a freed African American. He purchased a ticket in the first class section of a train, and a train conductor or the person goes around and checks tickets is going to make him move even though he bought the ticket. So he's going to fight it. He's going to take it to court, and up through the chain of command, I guess you would say, the final ruling says as long as things are separate, they are considered equal. So separate but equal. So you're going to hear this expression over and over again this first couple of lessons. And you're going to notice that it's going to take a little bit, but this way of thinking is going to change. So here we go. Starting in 1896, separating groups of people based on race was illegal according to the Supreme Court. True or false? So here's where you're going to see separate but equal coming about. So I kept this slide on here, and this is normally one that we would talk about in class, but you see two examples of what separate but equal meant. So picture on the left on both of them are going to be schools now, or are going to be what white people used. So notice the condition. So the drinking fountain looks really, really nice. The school picture, kids have really sharp looking stuff. Then you look at on the right, you're going to notice that African Americans are going to be asked to, in this case, take a drink from this drinking fountain, or in this case, go to send their kids to this school. So they are separate because you don't see there isn't any intermingling of races here, but they're also equal in the opportunity. And that was the loophole here. So you can get a drink from both, so therefore they're equal, so they can be separated. You can get an education in both of those schools. That's why they can be separated, because they're equal. So where you're going to see this is going to basically transpire shortly thereafter is something called Jim Crow laws. This is what's going to make it equal, or this is where you're going to see the separation actually happening, the separate but equal being around. So you're going to notice that certain areas are going to be separated, and I have a list of them right there, and feel free to look at them. But most everybody knows what this is all going to be around. So since the Supreme Court ruled they can be separate as long as they're equal, you're going to notice that this is going to be the law of the land for a long, long time. So where does it start to change? Is in this lesson. We're going to get into it in the 50s and the 60s, and things are going to change. So here's my question for you. The separation of races was more commonly known as. So, where the separation is happening is mostly in the South. However, it is worth noting it still happened in the North. So, it's just kind of seen as a thing. I mean, people were divided in houses, people were divided in going out in public, libraries, restaurants, whichever. And you're going to notice that this discrimination is going to be something that's going to be around for a while, as we've already talked about. But where African Americans were seen were quite commonly on the bottom rung of the social ladder. And you're going to notice that the poverty rates, the literacy rates are going to basically get established during this time that some African Americans face still to this day. So where do things start changing is you're going to see a group of people called CORE, and a gentleman with their leader's name is James Farmer. And you're going to notice that they are going to be the ones that are going to start fighting it legally. And you also see an NAACP group that you may have heard about in the past. They're going to start getting civil rights discussed just a little bit more. And FDR had his hand in that during World War II and all the civil contracts that the government was doing with certain people. He said that people that were underneath a government contract could not discriminate anybody based on race. So you're going to notice that even before the time period that I'm going to hit here in a little bit with the Montgomery bus boycott, there's going to be certain groups of people that are going to be bringing this to attention. And you're going to notice that it's going to basically get an exclamation point with this. So, Jackie Robinson, some of you may have heard about during the same time when all this stuff is happening, is going to be the first African American baseball player. So he's going to break what's known as the color barrier in pretty much every sport. And you're going to notice that he showed that African Americans can literally do anything that white people can do, if not better. And it's worth noting, he wasn't just some like average player. He was a phenomenal baseball player, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame because of it. And he had his number retired in all of baseball. So that means every single baseball team retired his number of 42. So, true or false, segregation happened in the North. All right, so where do things start getting changed is in this Supreme Court case again of Brown versus the Board of Education. So, in case you have not figured it out, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and whatever they say absolutely goes, and it's going to become the basis of a lot of laws. So, in this Brown versus the Board of Education, it's going to be a group of families, last name Brown, and they're going to be taking on the Topeka Board of Education, so Topeka, Kansas. So they are actually going to fight and win a Supreme Court case 9-0, and they're going to officially change separate but equal. So this is a big deal. Supreme Court hardly ever goes 9 versus 0. And how it was basically proven by the lawyer Thurgood Marshall is that the education that African Americans were getting was not equal because of the knowledge that they did not get and the resources they just straight up didn't get. So, for example, I think it was in Mississippi, African Americans were getting $23 per student, while white students were getting 80 some dollars per student. So that's kind of showing you where the discrepancy was. But again, 9-0. That is a huge, huge win for the African Americans. And this was the quote that basically set it apart. It says, "Does segregation of children in public schools solely on the base of race? It deprives the children of the minority group of equal education opportunities." And basically, in simple English, this is saying if you separate them by race, they're not getting the same education, which is not equal. So that's why separate but equal officially gets thrown away. Jim Crow laws officially gets thrown away to some degree. So again, other schools are going to follow suit. So in Little Rock, Arkansas, there's going to be a group of people called the Little Rock Nine. They are going to fully integrate into an all-white school. And you're going to notice this is not going to go over very well. So the Arkansas government is actually going to order the National Guard to go and block these 9 students from entering into the school. Well, Eisenhower, who was the president during the time, is going to out Trump that. He's going to send the 82nd Airborne to go and escort these students into school. So, thousands of soldiers are going to walk 9 kids into class. And if that does not send a very clear message of what Eisenhower stood for and how much he believed in the Constitution, I don't know what does. So it even trickled all the way down to this 9-year old, Ruby Bridges. She got rocks thrown at her when she went into her elementary school, which is a whole new level of low, but that's just my own personal opinion. Sorry that I dropped that in. But you're going to notice that no age was basically safe from the evils of this civil horror. So here's my question for you. The name of the court case that made separating schools on the basis of race illegal was? And let's finally get to the topic at hand. So right around the same time, I'm not sure which one happened first, and sorry for not knowing that, but here's where you're going to hear a name that I guarantee you know, Rosa Parks, where she is going to take her famous stand. So a little background knowledge to this. Montgomery, Alabama, it is against the law for African Americans to sit in the white section if a white person needs a spot on the bus. So, what's going to happen is that Rosa Parks is going to get off from work. She's going to sit on the bus and she's going to sit there and not get up. A white person approaches her and says, "Hey, I really need a spot." She said, "No, no, thank you. I'm tired." And next stop, Rosa Parks got arrested. So this was really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back because immediately after this, the African American community is going to unite around Rosa Parks and they're going to do what's called the bus boycott. So, why this is such a big deal is because African Americans are finally taking a nonviolent stand against basically the white man's law. And for almost a whole year, African Americans got to work any way they could, got around town any way they could, except for riding the bus. Now, here's another lesson for you. When the African Americans are not riding the bus, the Montgomery bus system is losing a lot of money. The African Americans were their number one customer, hands down, not even a question. So again, here comes in the Supreme Court again. When they catch wind of all this, they're going to rule this unconstitutional, meaning you cannot separate based on race on the law or on the bus because of what was just ruled with this separate but equal stuff. So, question for you: which term best describes the type of protest used in the Montgomery bus boycott?